Welcome inside the Pirate Television studio. I'm James Justice. On this week's edition of Hall Talk, we'll discuss the future of Seton Hall Athletic Director Pat Lyons, Seton Hall Baseball's dramatic home-and-home series against Rutgers, softball's recent struggles in the Big East, and the very latest additions for both men's and women's basketball. So don't go anywhere. Hall Talk starts right now. Welcome back inside the studio. James Justice here. We had a busy week of news here at Seton Hall. It started on Tuesday with news that Patrick Lyons will not be in the running anymore for the Boston College Athletic Director position. He was down in Atlanta last week and met with officials from Boston College. Boston College looking for their new head for the athletic department after not winning a game in men's basketball or football, but he is no longer in the running. But guys, I'm going to open it up to you because this is where it gets interesting for Seton Hall. Lyons is obviously a guy who has helped Seton Hall reach new heights. And now with a program like Boston College coming in for him, how long do you think Seton Hall can realistically hold on to a guy like this?
He's a solid AD, especially for Seton Hall. Looking past the two men's basketball appearances in the NCAA tournament, he just brought a lot for this program. I mean, he gave so many varsity teams new locker rooms. He had the baseball team of a 39-win season in 2013. That was the most since 2000. But BC wasn't for him because they were more of a football school, even though the football team isn't that great. But at the end of the day, Seton Hall doesn't obviously have a football team, so it just wasn't going to work out for him.
JP, is that a tough hurdle for an athletic director like Lyons, not having a football program here if he wants to eventually transition on somewhere else in the future?
I don't know if it is or not. I think Pat Lyons is someone who is a rising superstar in the AD world. He got we were a loser school before he got here. Let's not forget that. And number one, our grades were low. Grades for athletes are at a record high at this school. So if schools like BC who are down low want to start rebuilding, that's great. I think his days here are numbered, which is sad, but he did a great job while he was here.
Absolutely. I mean, he's brought a lot of programs to Seton Hall. You look at the tennis team, women's golf, and he's had definitely a good run here so far. But moving on from that to one of the programs that he's been a part of, and that would be baseball. And Seton Hall baseball had a dramatic game yesterday, guys.
Ooh, yeah.
A big, long game, 5-hour, 12-inning game, and Seton Hall was able to get the win off a walk-off inside the park home run of all things from Rob Dodona. They get the home-and-home series against Rutgers. What are your thoughts on that? How can they take the momentum from that into future games?
Rutgers is a solid team, and just the fact that they came back, they were down by 1 run in the bottom of the 9th. They came back, they tied it up, went to the 12th. Even looking past that inside the park home run by Rob Dodona, this team really came out strong. They had 7 pitchers on the mound, and give it up for Matt Ponziglione, the sophomore pitcher, to get the win, his first in his collegiate career. Great job by the Pirates to really come together. This is a game where you can really say might be a momentum, factor for the rest of the season.
If you look at games earlier in the year, take like the first game against Xavier, similar situation. Not as many runs scored in that game, but this was a game they would have lost earlier in the season, or just a week prior. So it's big finally pulling off a walk-off win. They did it in the right time. Hopefully this carries on to the rest of Big East play because that's where it really matters because ultimately it's out-of-conference game, so it really is not that important. But it's nice getting the win, owning the state, number one. Who doesn't like beating Rutgers, am I right?
Absolutely, and you mentioned it. There's 2 big wins for Seton Hall against a big rival, but not conference wins. They have to improve in the conference right now. They're 1 game out of a conference tournament spot, so how do they take the momentum, and what's the biggest thing they need to work on to get those wins in conference now?
Just hitting in clutch situation. I mean, they had a season-high 16 runners on the base yesterday that were left on the base. Those are just runs. They could have won this game by so many runs. It was a 1-run win for them. At the end of the day, you have to drive in the runs.
And I'll piggyback off that. In Big East games, they would either get so much run support or no run support. So there are games where our pitchers give up 2 or 3 runs. nothing. End up getting the loss. So people are going to talk about the pitching's down, like all these losses McCarthy has. But if there's no run support, you can't get the win. It's simple as that.
Completely agree. I mean, seniors like Joe Podislenko, Mogs, they're not producing. Podislenko has a batting average of 250. Mogs has an on-base percentage of 330. They're not producing. These are the seniors that you have to rely on for the baseball team. They're just not producing. They have to produce for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And you talk about offensive production. That's something that the softball team has definitely been getting, but it's been a mixed bag lately for this team. They dropped 3 games against Creighton earlier this week. They now go on to a big road series against Providence. They're also 1 game back in the Big East tournament for a spot in the conference tournament. So what do they have to do to turn it around?
I mean, they have a tough schedule. I mean, you have last place Providence. You have number 5 Butler that just won a Big East tournament last season. And then you have number 1 St. John's. So they have a tough last 9 or 10 games rest of the season. And let's not forget, last season they were 0-6 to end of the season, really a downer of an ending year. So it's one of those things they really have to just rely on their pitching. Madison Strunk against Creighton last Saturday, she came in relief. She had 5 excellent innings. She had 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run. You have to rely on those people that can just come into the game and really get the job done.
And I'll think about this from like a big picture standpoint. Just take care of yourself. Providence is in last place. Win them. Just win those 3 games. That changes the outlook. So, yes, 1 game at a time. That's all it is. Keep getting the bat on the ball. You never know. So, and other teams could start dropping games unexpectedly. So
Totally agree. And we have an interesting parallel this week with baseball and softball. You look at it, both teams 1 game back of that conference tournament spot, like I mentioned, and both teams playing the bottom team in the conference for a 3-game set. So you think those have got to be must-win games. But moving from the diamond over back to the hardcourt, a place where we were for a long part of this Hall Talk season.
Very long.
And it seems like we can't avoid it, but a lot of topics this week on the recruiting trail for men's and women's basketball. We'll start with the men's team. Trayvon Duval, a player that has just been heavily linked with this team for a long time. It appears as though he is on his way to Duke. Mixed things going back and forth this week, but it appears as though he's on his way to Duke. And a new incoming transfer for Seton Hall today, a 3-star recruit, Sandro Mamukelishvili, is coming in for the side. Say that 3 times. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the incoming transfer, and what are your thoughts on Duval, being that it might be over?
I have to break everyone's heart. It's 100% over with Trayvon Duval. He is going to Duke. I got word earlier this week that he did film his commitment video to Duke. So let's just get our mind off of it. It's sad he's not coming here. But I'm going to talk about Sandro Mamukelishvili. I cannot say that 3 times fast, but he's a good wing 4-star stretch 4. It's nice. He goes out to the 3, can make a couple. A little bit lacking on the defensive side, but that's something Willard can coach up.
Surprising with Duval because he wants to be a one-and-done college player, and the ability to be at Seton Hall in New York City, the proximity, the ability to market yourself, it was a shock that Seton Hall wasn't his option. It really was.
Yeah,
But
Duke's Duke.
thinking about Sandro, I looked at his highlights tape. He doesn't play like a center. He doesn't play like a power forward. He plays like a guard. He can shoot the ball. I mean, he's great from beyond the arc. He's great. He has great ball handling skills. This can be a major asset for the Seton Hall men's basketball team.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see. It's going to be interesting. And you mentioned Duke and, players like Grayson Allen coming back as well. It seemed as though Duval would go one way, but it seems it's gone the other way. And then we go from the men's side to the women's side. Tony Bozzella really bringing in a tremendous recruiting class, top ranked in the Big East and top 50 nationally right now. And he adds 3 more players to that list, all transfers in Nicole Jimenez, Inya Butini, and Dunya Fountain. So, guys, 3 interesting players, 2 from junior colleges, 1 from Temple coming in, Fountain being the one from Temple. Guys, what are your thoughts on them? What can they bring to the team?
Well, as long as they have the team win, that's if they can show leadership. Like Fountain's someone I talk about. She's a grad transfer. Maybe show some leadership because that's what this year's team's lacking. So hopefully there's some leadership and that can lead to some wins.
Jimenez and Butina, they're both coming out of community colleges. Butina, she is a monster from beyond the arc, shooting 40% from the 3-point line. I'm looking for Fountain to really come out, be a leader for this team. One of the only seniors that this team will pretty much have. She averaged 12 rebounds and 12 points and 7 rebounds, a year ago. And I think just the addition that they have with the freshmen of Kimi Evans and now Selena Philoxy, who's 6'2", and Evans is 6'4", they're really going to bring this team together. And I think the major part that I really think the Seton Hall women's basketball team is lacking in is defense and the ability to rebound. And I think just having a 6'4" player coming in as a freshman is really going to help this team tremendously.
Yeah, 3 really different, interesting players. You get a player who can average 10 players coming in as a transfer. You get another player who, a very fundamentally different player, and then you get a sharpshooter and a person who can rebound. So really good for Seton Hall. And that's about all the time we have for this week on Hall Talk. Plenty to look out for in the coming weeks. Men's and women's golf tournaments, women's tennis tournaments coming up. But again, that's all we have time for this week. For myself, James Justice, for my panel, Frank Frasco and JP Proul, this has been Hall Talk. Tune in next week for more.